Do you believe that this indecision on the part of the voters and which I think is directly tied to the fact that a lot of the Republican candidates are not focusing on the issues that they say are most important to them, and they're not resonating with them. Do you think that could lead to a blue wave in Alabama? Alrighty, welcome in. It's your favorite political podcast. It's Alabama Politics This Week with Josh Moon and
David Person.
How are you, Dave?
Hanging tough, man. Hanging tough. Other than dealing with the annual. Well, I say annual. It's more than annual. But the assault on the home I live in, the house I live in, I got woodpeckers pecking on. And so you may hear that periodically. I don't know. I got woodpeckers pecking their rat-a-tat-tat-tat on some part of the house, and I got squirrels trying to chew away at the outside of the house. This is crazy, man. I'm under assault.
That's yeah. I'll tell you, man. This is a crazy little bit here. So when I was growing up, for some reason or another, and I know how it happened, but I don't know why it necessarily happened. We ended up twice with raising a baby squirrel.
Wow.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, man, they make some interesting pets. And they are, they get attached to you, just like a dog.
Wow.
We would come in from like school, and we were young, probably 12 or 10, 12 years old, something like that. And I would come in from school, and that little joker, man, would come running up to us and just attach itself to us. It was crazy. Yeah. And so I have a hard time getting, and I know that the squirrels can be a nuisance, but because of those experiences, I have a hard time. They're almost like dogs to me,
Wow.
Sorry. I just,
So it was the squirrel was not in a cage or something, or it was.
We had a place where it stayed most of the time, but we would leave it out from time to time, let it run around. But I mean, it was.
Wow.
I mean, yeah, you could. Yeah, and then we would let it go outside as well, because we were going to let it run off, but it never did.
Uh-huh.
And so because he knew where the food was.
So it was just completely. It became completely domesticated, and it was with you until the day it passed on.
Yeah. In both cases.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just.
Okay.
I mean,
Wow.
and it wasn't like we were keeping it that way either. We would let it out and stuff, and so it was kind of wild. It was an interesting. It was an interesting experience with them. It was, and I probably broke some sort of wildlife law by doing that, but about wild animals or something. So now the state conservation people are going to come after me. But I do believe the statute of limitations has expired on that one, because that had to be 30 plus years ago at this point.
I think you're
actually,
safe.
damn near, it's got to be almost 40. Look, so. Wildlife experiences aside, before we get into the show, we've got a good one. David gets into a fantastic argument later. You're going to want to hang around for it, and it's really, really great. Poor fella. Just annihilates Adeline Clark. I felt so bad for her. Mercy.
I don't know what happened. I don't want to. Yeah, let's move on.
Hey, before we get into all that, though, we need to tell you about our friends at Wind Creek Entertainment. They sponsor this. They make the whole thing go, and they do a ton for the state as well. They operate 3 great resort casinos in this state, in Montgomery, Wetumpka, and Atmore. The Wetumpka and Atmore ones being their crown jewels. And really, the one in Atmore was the one that started everything, and this one's got a lot of amenities if you're going down that way, which I know a ton of you are, because it's getting into beach season and the travel season, when we're all headed down to the Gulf Coast. We're going to go down. Today's the 1st. It's April Fool's Day. So we record this on Wednesdays, and so we're later this month we'll be headed down to the beach, and I'm advocating fully for a stop in Atmore. Okay, just to let everybody know, I'm advocating fully for a stop in Atmore, and I'll also say, OWA is a fantastic place. We went a couple years ago. And to this day, my daughter will bring that up just randomly and talk about what a great time she had at OWA, which is the water park operated by the Porch Creek Indians down in the Foley area. And it's a fantastic time, as is any stay in Wetumpka or Atmore. If you're headed down to the beach, and you're going to need a place to stay probably. Or break up the trip. You're going down. Let's say you're checking in on Saturday, leave out of work on Friday, stay at Atmore. You get in early on Saturday. Everybody's rested and ready, and you had a good time at the casino, and you had a good time, playing the games, and the kids were great because they got to stay at the resort. The wife's great because she went to the spa and got the massage. You're great because you had the steaks and stuff at Fire, the restaurant inside. I mean, everybody's happy. Okay, make it to where everybody's happy. Don't have a grumpy start to the vacation. Go down and stay with the folks at Wind Creek Entertainment. Trust me, you won't regret it. Go down and see them. Tell them we sent you. Tell them to get our rooms ready, that we're coming soon. So, all right. Just look. If you want to book, look them up online. Wind Creek Entertainment. Just look them up. Google it up and book a stay. Pick out a nice place. All the rooms are fantastic. They are really, really. I'm telling you, you will not believe the service. You won't believe that they've got service like that in Alabama. They just do. All right, getting into politics, and what we do here. There was a poll this week, and I thought it was a pretty interesting poll. And it's called the Alabama poll, and it's one of the more legitimate ones because they put the methodology right out there for everybody to see. They tell you who it was, what they did, how they collected the information, what the data says, all these sorts of things, and that's what creates a good poll. Whenever you see one of these things that's on a website somewhere and nobody will really tell you how they collected those things, you might raise some questions because you don't know exactly what the questions were that were asked and how they were asked and how they were framed. This one here is more of a straightforward poll, just on its face, because it's just really looking to see out of the 600 likely Republican primary voters that were polled. And that's who this poll was based on. They went through the different races, and then they asked them what their top priorities were. What was the most concerning issues for them as a voter? What were they looking for? And it had some really, really interesting findings and results from the respondents to this poll. One of the biggest was that in two of the bigger races out there, lieutenant governor and attorney general, at this point in time, more than 60% of the people who responded, these are likely Republican primary voters now, more than 60% are undecided. Now, that's really striking to me in the AG's race because it is one of the it's got to be the most money ever spent on an attorney general's race in the state of Alabama. I mean, there are millions and millions of dollars in this thing right now between Jay Mitchell and Catherine Robertson. And those two have spent millions of dollars on ads, millions of dollars on TV and mailers and all sorts of stuff, and traveled all over the place and made fools of themselves in various different ways. And one of them will be our right-wing nut or bonehead, whatever, this week. And so, but they've done all this. And yet Pamela Casey, who's also running on the Republican side for AG, is in a statistical tie with them, having spent less than $50,000. All right. So what that should tell a lot of people is whatever message you're putting out there, it ain't hitting. It ain't hitting with people. It's not, you're not attracting anybody. And it's kind of the same way in the U.S. Senate race as well, where Barry Moore has the endorsement, the full and whatever endorsement from Donald Trump.
From Trump,
And then you've got Steve Marshall, who, I mean, honestly, he just couldn't be more awful, and doing things every day for, he's got the full endorsement of the people who want to treat other humans poorly. And so you got those guys out there doing this, and yet Jared Hudson is in a statistical tie with them. And you're thinking, who the hell is Jared Hudson?
Right.
And I looked him up, a few months back when he first announced. And I mean, he was, I believe, a former SEAL that runs a charitable organization in the state about trafficking children. I've watched a handful of his videos. They're the typical ill-informed Republican dreck. But I will say, on Mr. Hudson's behalf, that most of the things has not been who he hates the most, who he wants to run out of the country, and all this other stuff. He's focused a lot on what the people in these polls said were the most important issues to them. And of those people polled, of those 600, 80% of them said their most important issue was something related to affordability, whether it was gas, insurance, healthcare, groceries, something in that realm was their most important issues and the things that were most impactful to their families. And I don't know, it doesn't seem as though the folks on the Republican side are very focused on those things. All of their commercials are about who they hate, who they loathe, who they want to get rid of, who you should be afraid of.
Yeah, and also, who's got the backing of Trump? And I think that what we're seeing now is probably indicative of Trump fatigue and also Trumpism, a fatigue with Trumpism, which is that, who we hate and who we despise and who we're going to, get retribution against, that whole sort of mean, evil spirit. I think that's wearing out folks, especially because when you juxtapose that with we're not doing well financially. We're struggling to make ends meet. We're concerned about health care and our ability to access it and pay for it. So you start juxtaposing that with the mean stuff and the Trump stuff, and it's like, well, what has that done? What's the old song, "What Have You Done For Me Lately?" I think Janet Jackson, that was a big Janet Jackson hit back in the 90s. What have you done for me lately? I mean, what is it doing for them? It's not doing anything for them. Oh, you know that song, huh?
Man, I know all the songs. Come on. 90s? That's when I was listening, man. I don't know any of the newer stuff, but yeah, I know. I'm such an old person now. God, I hear things. We go to trivia all the time, and I mean, and there'll be like so and so has a number one hit for 8 weeks and on the Hot 100, and I have no idea. I feel like such an old person, man.
I can tell you that BTS, that group from South Korea, debuted at number 1 on the Billboard Top 200, and that's all I can tell you. That's it. Okay. That's all I got.
I'll listen. I'll put that in my notes for trivia tonight. All right, we bounce around to about 3 different trivias every week, and so it's Right. I mean, I honestly, man, it's insane to me. I don't know. Let me tell you what the problem is. I don't listen to the radio anymore, or not even like radio, like satellite radio, or even really music anymore, because I listen to so many audiobooks and podcasts. And so like when I go run, man, one of the things that I look most forward, I'm such a boring person. What I look forward to every day is going and running and listen and being able to listen to whatever audiobook that I'm listening to. And I mean, if you have some audiobook suggestions, I got them. I can hook you up with some audiobook suggestions.
Well, I know we're off topic here, but I just got to say before I forget, I actually downloaded that book that you told me about last year or something.
Yeah,
I finally downloaded it.
Yeah,
as an audiobook. Started listening. Yeah, the S.A. Cosby book. Yeah.
Hey, man, you did the audiobook version of that?
Yeah. Yeah, I got the audiobook.
The
Yeah.
guy who reads that is one of my favorite narrators of the books. He is so good at that. I mean, if you get a good narrator, it's great. There's a couple of them. Listen, I can go through them for you on like the, because I've got in my Audible account, I've got over 1,000 books. And then I've got
1,000? Wow.
then I've got a Libby account as well, where I don't know how many books I've got that I've run through on that thing that, and so.
Wow.
And so, yeah, I mean, listen, I listen like all the time. I listen in the car. I listen whenever I'm running somewhere. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you a life-changing experience for you. Okay.
King of Ashes is the name of the book.
King of Ashes is fantastic.
Yeah.
Listen, hey, S.A. Cosby has got some really, really good ones. And that King of Ashes is going to be turned into a movie or a TV show. It has already been optioned, and they are going to start that here in the next couple of months. But the a life-changing event for you is putting in headphones whenever you go into any public setting. And I mean, it just completely, if I have to go to Walmart or a grocery store or something, just completely ignore everybody and I'm in my own world. Okay. But no, so I do it all the time. But anyways, what were we talking about? How did we get off on this? Where did we go wrong?
I don't even know how we took a sharp left and went in that direction. But
I know where I was going to here, because I have a question for you. It's the same question that I asked in a column that ran this morning, which is, do you believe that this indecision on the part of the voters and which I think is directly tied to the fact that a lot of the Republican candidates are not focusing on the issues that they say are most important to them, and they're not resonating with them. Do you think that could lead to a blue wave in Alabama?
I think that it can definitely lead to a purple wave. I think I don't know if I fully embrace the idea that the state is going to flip all the way blue, but I do believe that that the conditions are ripe for change. And I think going back to what I said earlier before we detoured down the audiobook highway, I think that there has been a real serious miscalculation by a lot of these Republicans running, that the way to the Republican voters' heart is still Trump, 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 mean, nasty, we hate this group and we're going to, get this group back, and we're going to get retribution, and we're going to vindicate ourselves and all that. I think all of that it is not holding a candle to, as you've just suggested, the affordability issues. I think that's what's really, and they say that's what Democrats missed during the last presidential election, right? They said we weren't focused on affordability much. Well, it looks like the Republicans are making the same mistake, and they're so drunk on the Trump Kool-Aid that they think that that's the only thirst quenching option in town. And I think they're wrong. So I think we're going to see some surprises. Unless now that, of course, the caveat to what I'm saying is, if Republicans are not successful with the election interference strategies that they're trying to implement now, like the SAVE Acts and some other things, but barring those things, suppressing the vote, or allowing, in some cases, votes to be subverted, I think you're right. I think there's a very good possibility that we're going to see, at the very least, a purple wave, and they're going to be surprised by the outcomes of some of these elections.
Yeah, well, look, I'm not saying that there is, and I made that pretty clear in the column as well. I'm not predicting that that's going to be the case, because I do think there are a lot of factors. Some of the ones you just mentioned are there. That's a barrier to Democrats doing very well. And one that we kind of get into with Shane Weaver in a few minutes, and we know this is the case because we've already recorded it. But I think that there is, the Republicans have done a really good job over the course of the last several years of tarnishing the Democratic brand. to the point whenever you tell somebody I'm a Democrat, they just don't want to talk to you, don't want to hear you, don't want to listen to what you have to say. They have an image in their mind that has been painted for them by Republicans and conservatives over the course of however many years now of what that Democrat brand is, and they don't want to hear it. And so I think those things are barriers, but I do think that among the objective people out there, among people who have taken a look around, I think that there is a real distaste for some of the things that are going on. The immigration issue currently. I think that there are a lot of people out there who just aren't with it on what's taking place with it. I think they've gone too far. I think they've miscalculated it, and I think the inability of Republicans to extricate themselves from anything that Trump has started or has done is really harmful. And it's you see it all the time. I mean, Katie Britt's a perfect example. She cannot remove herself from things that she knows is wrong. And it is it honestly, I think it's dragging down a lot of people, and I think it's dragging down. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say she's a clever one, though, and I'm saying this cynically, and maybe I'm wrong to be cynical. Maybe she's doing this out of, some altruistic, aspect of her heart or personality. But what I've noticed with her is, she takes some very what I would call mean, nasty, negative kind of Trump positions on some things, but then she'll do something like work with Raphael Warnock to try to ensure that HBCUs get, research funding. Yeah. And I got to give it to her. I disagree with her on probably, 95, 90, maybe 99% of the stuff that she does. But on the HBCU issue, man, I got to give it to her. She's been there in ways that have been very surprising to me. So she's a clever one. She's not. No, she kind of straddles the fence sometimes.
I'll say this: Tommy Tuberville did the same thing, man. Tommy Tuberville. I've talked to a couple of HBCU presidents over the last two or 3 years, and both of them were very complimentary of Tommy Tuberville and Katie Britt for taking the meetings, for taking up their causes, for working with them on funding issues, for doing various different things. Now, at the same time, they've also cut their legs out from underneath them on a lot of other issues and a lot of other funding things that should have gone their way because of their overarching policies in terms of the Department of Education and funding and other things.
Exactly.
So I mean, they've done some things that have been very, very hurtful to some of those folks as well, and really hurtful for their students and the communities that they serve. But you're right in that, but I think too, though, my bigger point on that with her is that she, like a lot of Republicans, have not figured out a way to say when something like the immigration stuff and ICE goes too far to say, hey, whoa, we got to pull that back and be public about it and admonish the people that need to be stopped. And do, and they could do so in a way that still allows whatever they believe should be happening to happen. I'll say this. I do think a lot of people were very, very supportive of the idea of deporting and or removing from the country or imprisoning folks who have come over here with criminal records, who have committed criminal acts. I think everyone that I think most people were very supportive of that. Okay. But that's not what's happened. That has not been the tactic that they've chosen.
Josh, nobody wants MS-13 over here. Nobody wants cartel people over here. Nobody wants, bona fide criminals who they were criminals in their country and then they're coming over here to be criminals. Nobody wants that. And I think that the path forward for Katie Britt, who I think probably is a lot more, and I'm sure she would resent me saying this, but I don't care. She's probably a lot more moderate on some things than she pretends to be.
Yeah.
a lot more reasonable and moderate than she pretends to be. But I think the path forward for Katie Britt and some of these other reasonable Republicans is what Charles Barkley did. Charles Barkley, went on that CBS broadcast and basically said, look, what this, and I can't remember the kid's name, but some kid who's a star basketball player in college and has a really amazing immigration story, he and his family backstory. Charles Barkley said, look, this is a great story. These are great people, and there are a lot of great immigrants out there who are being mistreated and who are suffering under the hands of our government. And, there's a difference between, I think his words were, amazing immigrants, and
Yep.
you can put that in quotes, amazing immigrants, and, quote, criminal immigrants, unquote. And it was just reasonable common sense that I think people on both sides of the issue should be able to say, I can go along with that.
Yeah.
I can go along with what Charles is saying.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that well, look, let's be honest, that was essentially the Obama approach.
Yeah.
That's what Obama did. This is what Obama did during his tenure. I mean, people love to bring up the stats about how many people Obama deported, and you weren't saying anything about it back then. Yeah, because Obama didn't have ICE agents outside of Marine graduation ceremonies trying to deport families. Yeah. We weren't going into damn high schools and dragging kids out and shit.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
He deported some criminals.
Separating children from their families.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a decent, humane way to do things and to enforce laws and stuff. And that's all anybody has asked for. This idea that following the laws and being a decent upholder of laws is somehow lawlessness is some really bullshit. I mean, it's really the height of cruelty, and it's the height of lawlessness to allow people who have the authority to take away others' rights to run rampant and unchecked. Okay, that is the height of lawlessness right there. All right, but and so you're right, and I just think that though right now we have a situation where Democrats are doing exactly what the people say they want in this state in particular. They're doing all of these things. They put forth the affordability protection plan. The House Democrats did in the state, and it had great ideas of how to make things more affordable, how to counteract some of the things that have happened at the federal level, how to protect insurance plans and health care availability, and expand Medicaid, and do other things that really would help a tremendous number of this state, a number of people in this state, afford health care, and also keep health care affordable for everybody who is not falling into the gap area, because that's what's going to drive up costs for all of us. And so they're doing all of these things to the point that Republicans are copying their legislation. Okay. They defeated Anthony Daniels' tax break on overtime taxes. Remember when he had this and everybody was making got a 5% raise when they worked overtime, and then they killed it 2 years later. And now Lomax over here, James Lomax, who's running against Mo Brooks, he needed the boost. What's he come up with? An overtime tax repeal. A bill, that was not as good as the one Daniels had, but that's what I'm saying. They're copying these bills. And so could there be, some significant gains by Democrats? I think there actually could be. But I think so much of it is going to depend upon kind of the work that they do to unsully that image that has been so tarnished by Republicans over the course of the last 2 decades, I guess. And I just think I think they got a shot, though. I think this is their best shot in a long time to do it. The best, we'll see. We shall see.
Yep.
All right, let's slide out. We'll come back with Shane Weaver, and we'll start in round 1. And I don't think he's gonna answer the bell all the way through. But
come on, man. He's a nice guy. He's a nice guy.
Yeah, Shane.
I think he was off on a few things, but he's a nice guy.
Yeah, it's just listen. It gets a little tense. We'll see how it fares. We'll see how it fares. All right, it's Alabama politics this week. We're brought to you by Wind Creek Entertainment.